Hi, good evening. I will still be letting people in as we get started, but I am going to start. Happy New Year, happy 2026. I cannot believe that is the year that I'm saying out loud, to be honest, at this point. But I hope you had a lovely break if you managed to get one. It's been very nice to see these children today. They all seem very smiley and rested, which was really important. Today's evening is going to be around some key things that are going to be important this term, really. I will remind us of some key dates that are really important for the year group. We have got a member of our Access and Achievement team, Emma Holship, here, just to talk around access arrangements at Chorlton High School. We know that there are a number of students in Year 7 who have access arrangements, and she'll just talk us through that process as we move towards progress tests, which I'll mention in a lot more detail. I'll go over a little bit more around scholar habits. We've looked at this before in this evening, so I won't spend too long on that. I'll remind us of some code and conduct messages and some key school messages linked to that, particularly in regards to mobile phones. But the main part of the evening and the presentation is going to be around progress tests and, you know, making a little bit more sense of that. I know you've had information from us via email, but hopefully this will just clarify a few things linked to some questions that we've had from parents over the last few weeks. That links to the effort criteria that we use and the assessment and reporting system, that process that you'll go through towards the end of this half term as well. So thank you very much for attending. As always, we are recording this session, so it will also be available to watch or listen to after Friday. We're hoping it'll be on the website, and we'll let parents know when that is. Okay, so let's start with key dates. As you will know, as of Monday next week, so the 12th of January, we will start our progress test fortnight, where all students will, in years 7 to 10, will be tested in all subjects. Now, what they're tested on has been shared with students. It's also been shared with parents. It's in the home study site, and I'll go through that in a bit more detail later on in the presentation. And Parents' Evening for Year 7 is in person, and it's on the 7th of May, and the appointments will be between 4 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. Just a kind of little heads up on that. Information will come out in advance of Parents' Evening, well in advance actually, because there are certain systems that we use for you to book your appointments. Many of you have already used this system to book your tutor appointment, but obviously you'll be booking a number of appointments during the Parents' Evening one, so it'll be slightly different. You're not just booking in with one tutor, you're going to be booking in with many subject staff. So if you've got that in your diary, that's really helpful. The emails in advance will just kind of show you how to log on, or remind you how to log on, and it'll give you specific times of when things open for booking and when they close, just so we're all able to get the appointments that we want for that process. So like I said, I'm going to pass over to Emma Holship, who's part of our Access and Achievement team and who runs access arrangements for exams, just to give you a little bit more information. So I'll pass over now.
Hi guys, so I'm just going to have your attention for about 5 minutes just to run through this presentation sort on how we accommodate exam arrangements within the classroom. There are a number of exam arrangements, but I'm going to cover about 5 or 6, which are sort of the main popular ones that are accommodated in the classroom. There are lots of others, but they are more common for the sort of Key Stage 4 students. So what students should expect on the day of their exam. So all exam arrangements that we have will will be accommodated within the classroom bar one, which I'll talk about in a moment. So students will go to their normal classroom on the day of the exam, and then the exam will take place in that room. If students aren't quite sure what their arrangements are, that's fine. I am actually going to go into Thursday's assembly, I think it is, and speak to the students about what each exam arrangement is and how it will look and stuff, because obviously some of them haven't done this since primary school now. So teachers will also be able to confirm the arrangements with the students at the start of the exam, so they know what they need to be doing and stuff. As I mentioned before about primary school, a lot of these exam arrangements have followed through from primary school. So if they've had extra time in primary school, for example, they'll have it here. There are some that have been added in since the start of year 7, but mainly are from primary school. No new arrangements should be accommodated on the day unless it's already on their ARBA. Extra time and whatever shouldn't be given unless it's already stated on their ARBA. So I'll just run through the types of exam arrangements that we're going to be doing in these sort of sets of progress tests. So the first one is extra time, which is 25%. So this is built into the lesson schedule. Teachers have been advised to allow enough time to fit in the normal test time and the extra time, so students don't run over, they don't miss breaks, they don't need to come back and do it at a later date. It'll all fit within the time limit. Readers, so the class teacher will act as the reader in this case, or the teaching assistant if there's one in the room. Students in this case will raise their hand and prompt the teacher to come over, and then they can ask them to read anything. This can be as much as or as little as they need. So it might just be the odd word, or it might be the whole of their paragraph they've written, for example, and that's fine. You can read as like this. Sorry, teachers can read as long as they're not explaining sort of what to do and stuff. Rest breaks is another one, or timeout, it might be known as. Some students with timeout passes. So this is basically when they can pause the exam. They might need a break or a bit of a movement break outside of the classroom if this is feasible within that lesson. And any time that's taken during this break, so it might just be a couple of minutes, is added to the end of the exam, so they don't lose out on any of this rest break time. To just make sure that it can all be, again, like I mentioned with the extra time, it can all be accommodated on that lesson schedule. We say for a maximum of between 5 and 10 minutes of a rest break. Shouldn't be more than 10 minutes at a time. For 1 hour exam, you might find that students don't really need to use a rest break. Rest breaks can be extended more as they get into sort of longer exams when they reach Key Stage 4. So the only exception where students will need to come out of the room is if they work with a scribe. So students who have scribes, I've timetabled this in so that a member of the Access and Achievement staff will come and grab the student from the room, and they'll go and work in a quiet room such as the library or a room within Access and Achievement. So as I mentioned, the teaching assistant will collect them from their lesson, unless they've already got a teaching assistant in their lesson and they can act as the scribe in a room elsewhere. Just for the logistics of it all, we will only be offering scribes for core lessons, so maths, English and science. If any other subject teachers feel that their student needs a scribe in geography, let's say, for example, then they'll just pop me an email and we can sort out getting a scribe to them, that's fine. The next one is laptops. So a lot of students in Year 7 have their own laptop that they use anyway in lessons, and they can use this for their progress tests, but some only have laptops in exam situations. So on that case, they'll be prompted to come and collect a laptop from Access and Achievement. Will be shown how to use it briefly, and then they can take it back to the lesson and then do the writing, and then we can get that printed at the end and given to the teacher. Just move along. So as I mentioned, those 5 are sort of the main ones that we're going to be offering in these set of progress tests. There are some others, but none of the current Year 7s have them, so that's why I've chosen not to speak about them. So just to sort of end my session, so what I just want to add in really is that it's really vital that students are getting used to using their exam arrangements now, because consistent use is vital for them, but also as they progress into Key Stage 4, we need to make sure that these arrangements that they've got in place continues to be their normal way of working. In Year 10 and 11, we need to do applications to the exam boards to make these exam arrangements official, and we cannot do that without evidence that students have used this effectively throughout their whole time at school. If they're not using extra time at all, for example, then we would be in a case where we wouldn't be able to allow it. So us as a staff here will be constantly encouraging to use extra time, readers, etc. So if I just ask that you can also give these prompts at home to make sure that they're being used effectively and students know that they're there to help them. Again, it builds on their confidence and independence. Early practice of these helps students feel secure using them, getting to know what they are and how they work, reduces anxieties, especially around exam stress. And it also allows their independence to demonstrate what they know. And then just to end, if you know your student perhaps doesn't have exam arrangements and you think this is something that they may need, I popped an email there just at the end of this PowerPoint for if you just pop an email to that email address, and then we can perhaps look to see if students are eligible for exam arrangements. This won't, if I ask that you email this towards the end of the progress test, so we have time to sort of do the investigation and stuff that we need. So I'll pass you back to Miss Henderson. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss. Really appreciate that. Have a lovely evening. Okay, I'm going to continue. I did realise at the start I didn't introduce who it was, and the camera's not working, so that's problematic. So it is Miss Henderson delivering this. So apologies for not mentioning that at the start. Okay, so back to the session. We looked at these things during the last session, but just a reminder of kind of some of the key habits, scholar habits we call them here at Chorlton High School, that we are continuing to work on with students, and it really shows. So hopefully you've seen some incredible examples of your child's exercise books. When we do our internal kind of quality assurance and check-in, we've been super impressed with Year 7. They have taken to these habits so well, and we're very proud of them. They're doing an incredible job. So one of those habits is organise, and that is linked to their exercise books. We would love you to celebrate their books and the presentation and the work and all of the things that they are doing so consistently, especially as we move into the second term. When things are less new, we know that takes a little bit more guidance, a little bit more thought, and it's really helpful if parents continue to celebrate that too. The other side of it is, stationery. It's not an ongoing, everlasting thing, and some things might need replacing. Just being aware of that. We would always recommend pen, pencil and ruler. Additionally, they'll have highlighter and possibly even a glue stick. That would be amazing for you to support that. And I know at the moment many of our students are revising using their revision books, revision study planners, and it's these books that we want them to use to revise. So getting those exercise books out routinely and extending the notes where they kind of revisit in previous learning is really helpful too. In terms of support, supporting them with the habit that they're just really celebrating them and encouraging them, that would be amazing. The kind of second habit that we've really focused closely on is attention. We know that where learning's more effective, students need to be paying attention, and we know that actually they only learn the things that they are paying attention to. All the science tells us that, all our experience shows us that. So making sure that children are coming to school ready to learn, they've had a good night's sleep, is super important. I know today I saw a lot of tired faces, which was to be expected, especially due to the fact they've had a couple of weeks off, and as we wanted, they've rested, they've had more sleep, they're getting up a bit earlier, and it's always a bit of a shock to the system for all of us, not just the students. But getting back into those good routines is really important. And asking them questions about what they've been learning and sharing their day is really nice as well, because it can, it's just re-engaging them with the things that they've been paying attention to during the course of the day. Okay, reading. Reading again is one of those things that we know makes a huge difference to students in terms of their access to the academic curriculum. And encouraging that from home is really, really important. I always talk about it needs to be a habit, it needs to be part of their everyday habits. You know, there needs to be a time in the day where it's part of their routine, otherwise it is always the thing that gets dropped. And we are very well aware that, you know, reading's not, as our students get a little bit older, it's not always their favorite thing to do. But, you know, we've got an incredible library with incredible librarians. We do encourage them to go see them if they're struggling to find something that interests them, because honestly, their knowledge is just incredible. So please do encourage them to do that. Encourage them to go to the library with you. Check what they're reading. Make sure, you know, set up those routines as part of your family routine. Just always really, really important. And in terms of learning, you know, new vocabulary, or we know that it takes at least 3 times to say it verbally before it becomes part of their everyday vocabulary. Now, we have lots of structures in school to support those things in terms of them being used verbally, but, you know, talking to them, the glossaries in the back of their exercise books, if there are words in there, that's just a really good way to engage them in the vocabulary that they have been learning in class. So if parents want to do that, that's where you would find that new vocabulary as well. Collaborate, communicate. We know that talking is just, and listening is really important. They're all important habits, which is why they're part of our scholar habits, but being able to talk and listen well is just, it's a skill for life, and it's one that we really encourage here at Chorlton High School. We do a lot of turn and talk, we do a lot of opportunities for them to collaborate and to communicate in class, and giving them opportunities to talk through things at home. And reading with them is also a good way of just building up that confidence in talk as well. So we just highly encourage that. Final 2, home study. They are working on this. We know they are. You know, they're revising. They're taking these progress tests really seriously, which is lovely to see. But making sure they've got somewhere to complete their home learning is just really powerful. Making sure if they've got phones that they're not, you know, they're not a distraction, because like I say, what we pay attention to, we learn. And if their mind is half on something else, that can be problematic in terms of revision. So, you know, I think something Emma said about the use of access arrangement kind of does correspond with home study habits and these revision habits that we're working on. Progress tests are important in lots of ways, but I would argue the most important thing about them is getting these good habits and routines and the knowledge of this process. It does reduce their anxieties as they move through to Key Stage 4, where exams become a lot more pressured, or they certainly for the students feel a lot more pressured. So getting into these good routines now, with revision is the most important thing. You know, students have 5 years. It's a 5-year journey. It's not about getting 100% on everything. It's not even about being where they need to be right now. It's about the journey of getting where we think they should be, and that this is part of that. So, you know, working on those home study habits is really important. I've talked about literacy. We have a plan process here when it comes to writing. Reading again is a good kind of foundation of writing, so lots of reading is really good for them. Vocabulary, all of that is really powerful. I will say as well, audiobooks are really, really good as well. So if students are really struggling with that kind of independent reading, I would advise an audiobook, maybe with the actual physical book at the same time, if they can, but if not, it's not the end of the world either. Audiobooks can be just as powerful because they're learning stories and building vocabulary, and hearing those words out loud is a really important thing. Okay, so you will already know this. I know for a fact our students know it really well. We only have 3 rules here at Chorlton High School, albeit within them there seems to be plenty more. But our main 3 rules are for our students to be ready, respectful, and safe. And we just think they really do encapsulate what makes, you know, the best environment for students to learn in. And we have spent lots of time going through these rules, making sure that we're taking pride in who we are, what we do and how we do it, that we feel like we belong, that we treat everyone in our school with respect, and that we have a calm, safe and positive environment where we all feel like we belong, you know. And it's not always perfect, and that's important, but actually we ground ourselves in these things, and this is what we always come back to. This is our expectation, because we want our students to have the very best educational experience and school experience, and we just know that with all of these things in place, that is exactly what they get. So some of the things that we've been speaking to students about come back to being ready. So we talk about aware, and I'm going to go through that in a bit more detail. With their phone, we talk about how, you know, looking their best, which is uniform and equipment. We talk about being respectful and speaking respectfully, with our language and our community belonging in, you know, as part of that. And we talk about calm corridors. There are other things we talk about, but they're the main ones that we've focused on so far this term. So aware. Aware is our slogan for mobile phones. Aware is what we expect for mobile phones to be at school. It's a no phone school. So at the gate, our phones need to be turned off and put in bags. We want them to wait until they've left the school grounds before they turn them back on. Any phone seen on school grounds will be confiscated, and you can only take your mobile phone out if directed by a member of staff to do so. There are some occasions, very few, I'm going to be honest, as someone that's worked here for a very long time, very few occasions, but there are some occasions where students may ask to take out their mobile phone to contact, mainly it's to contact one of you guys in terms of parents, but they need to speak to a member of staff before they do that, otherwise it will be confiscated. Now you'll notice that there is a WhatsApp logo on this, and actually I've sent a letter out previously last term, but I just want to remind us about some important guidance regarding WhatsApp groups. It's come to our attention that there's many groups being set up in year 7 for WhatsApp, and unfortunately some messages within these groups have been highly inappropriate. As a school, we do not believe that students should have access to WhatsApp. The platform is not designed for young people, and its use often leads to issues such as those that we're seeing at school. These issues link to inappropriate language, images that are being shared that are, you know, not appropriate. And it's clear that many students are unaware of kind of the legal implications of sharing images, reposting or distributing these images without permission, and the breach of privacy regulations that can have. I just want to do a quick reminder that if you choose to allow your child to access WhatsApp, we really do strongly advise that you check their account daily to monitor their activity. We also strongly recommend that all students leave any WhatsApp groups that they're currently part of to prevent further issues. That's our recommendation, and to protect their well-being. We really do appreciate your support in helping us maintain a safe and respectful environment for all members of our school community. I know that we've sent out further guidance for this for your reference during the autumn term, but it's just a plea really from us. You know, we are a no phone school for a reason. We really feel like, you know, smartphones specifically, you know, are unnecessary for the age group. But if that is something that you've chosen to do, that's, you know, that is your right, but please do be mindful of checking it, because with the anonymity that comes with text messaging, specifically on things like WhatsApp and social media, children make mistakes. You know, it's a very mature thing to have. Adults make mistakes. So it's just something that we need to be really mindful of, because they're not anonymous ultimately, and it can be really problematic. So I just wanted to take a little bit of time to say that and just remind parents that kind of the school stand on that. Okay, looking your best. Our students look amazing. Like year 7, I'm really pleased with the uniform. But just a reminder of what that means at Chalton High School. That means that their blazer needs to be on at all times. Obviously, when they're playing in the playground, we do allow them to take their blazers off. If they're in a classroom and it's uncomfortable, the teacher will allow them to take them off. But as they are moving around the building, the blazer needs to be on. Equipment ready, having basic equipment, having their exercise books, the things that they need for lesson, is really important. It's one of those things that it just takes out any of the pressure of the day. They've got the stuff, they're ready to go, and we can focus on what they're here to focus on, which is learning. So yeah, really important that they've got their equipment, shirts tucked in, it looks smart. We highly encourage that. It needs to be tucked in all the way around, and obviously skirts need to be school length. And tied to the top, it does say 7 stripes there. You will know that your child has a completely teal tie. There is no stripe on there. But I actually have no concerns with how year 7 are wearing their ties. They're wearing them at a long enough length. I've got no concerns there at all. So just a little bit reminder that we always talk about looking our best, being the best versions of ourselves. And that is a really big thing when it comes to uniform. Obviously it's got cold this week. I mean, it's been cold for quite some time now, if you ask me, but it's got particularly cold this week. Them coming in coats is highly recommended at this point. I'm not, that's something that I will say. It is very cold, but making sure that they are, when they will enter the building, they're ready to go, and they're looking their best. That's what we ask for. Oh, I've nearly cleared the video then. And finally, calm corridors. We have lots of students here at Chalton High School, and you will know that breaks and lunches are at different times for different year groups, so they can have their own spaces. And it's really important that when we're on corridors, we're calm, we're facing forward, we're walking swiftly, and we're aware of lesson learning that is going on. We ask students to walk to the left because that allows for safer movement around the building, and obviously moving swiftly facing forward. This gets even more important as we approach progress test fortnight, because lots of classrooms will be focused on tests over the course of those 2 weeks. It's important all the time, but it's even more important in these next 2 weeks, and they are messages that we have shared with students also. So that's conduct. Now, the main part of the evening is around progress tests. So you will be aware, I know that lots of information has been shared already, but we do 2 lots of progress tests here at Chalton High School. So we do one next week, starting next week, so the early spring term, and one towards the middle of the summer 2 term, so towards the end of the year. So it's testing 2 learning cycles. It gives them 2 opportunities a year to go through the process of preparing to revising, going through practicing exam arrangements, anything, all of those kind of things, those soft skills that come around exam skills. That's what this is for. It's for our teachers to be able to check knowledge, where are the gaps, and fill those gaps. So much of the end of this spring 1 term will be around filling those gaps, and after we've done those tests and marked those tests. So I'm going to move on there. So it starts Monday the 12th and it finishes Friday the 23rd. All exams will take place within those 2 weeks. All students have their home study booklet now, and they've been working on these since before half term, before the break. I know there was an email sent out in December with this information on as well. So in terms of information that students have been given, I don't want to go over this one. They've been given a timetable, and that timetable is very, very specific. So they should know exactly when every exam is taking place. We timetable, we put on there for them exactly when their English and science exams will take place. And you'll see if 7X if they're in one of those forms, so 7X will be, I want to make sure I get this right, 7KH, 7CB, 7AL and 7AN. They need to look at the 7X English, 7X Science, 7X Maths. And then if they're in any of the other forms, they're 7Y, and they need to look at the 7Y, etc. What we also do is we tell them which week their exam will be in. So with the exception of Spanish and French, which take place over 2 weeks because of the nature of the tests, they should know exactly when their test is taking place. So if, for example, in that box week 1, art is there, their test will take place in that week during their art lesson. So if their art lesson is period 3 on a Wednesday, for example, which is not a terrible example because there's science in there. So if their art lesson is period 2, for example, on a Wednesday, that is exactly when their art test will take place. So students should be able to know exactly when their tests will take place. Now, they, as with any, any kind of educational environment, there might be a couple of changes based on, staff attendance, etc. But they will be few and far between. So generally, that will be the timetable that is delivered and will be accurate for your child. So just to kind of highlight that is available to them. They've also then been given study planners where they can kind of plan out what they are studying and when, what they are revising. It's really important, we give them these booklets with all the information that they are, they could get tested on, and it's a lot of information. So, we tell them to rag that information, so red, amber, green it. So you can see a little bit of an example there about their confidence with the key information. So they can focus on the areas where they feel least confident, and that's what they should be putting into their study planners. We don't recommend that students spend hours on one subject. We rather they would interleave that revision, working, 10-20 minutes on one subject and moving on to the other. We think that's really important. We know that's really important in terms of learning and memorizing information, but they need to focus on those red areas. So the first thing that they should be doing is ragging that information and focusing on the areas where they feel least confident in. Because like I said, whilst these tests are important, what's more important is the processes that they get used to and the routines that they get used to, especially as they move through year 7 and year 8, as they move into year 9. That is what is most important. All this information that we've given to students is been given obviously in physical form, but it's also available on the Home Study platform site. So in their home study site, they can access all of this information on Teams in the shared server. So any of the booklets, any of the timetables, all of that is available. If they click into students and go to the home studies study support, it's all there. So that's on our website. So if you go on our website, they click on that, they'll log into their Teams, they've got access to everything there. Just as a little reminder, if some things have got lost. If things have got lost and you could do with another physical copy, just tell them to let their form tutor know, and we'll get on that and get that delivered to them as well. Okay, so like I said, this is all on their student intranet as well, on Teams. So it's on the website for you to look at. It's on their year Teams as well. They can get all this information, all the revision strategies. There's some videos there on how to do them if they want to practice them. We do focus on specific ones over the course of the different years, over the course of the different cycles. So students get practice with different revision habits. I know mind maps is the first one that year 7 do. Just getting used to the different kind of ways that we can revise, because different revision strategies work best for different subjects, or different students like different things, and different knowledge bases that they're working with. So we don't want to throw them all at them at once, because that feels a little bit mean. We want to take our time to build that up over the course of the years. Like I said, this is a 5-year journey. This is not a term. there should be real pressure put on there. They shouldn't be putting any real pressure on themselves. They do their best, and I'll explain what that will lead to in terms of what information they'll be given and information you'll be given, and where we get that information from, because I think that is really important. So let's start with that. So when these are all done, teachers will obviously mark them. They'll be looking at the gaps in the classroom. They'll be looking at filling those gaps pretty much straight away, and readdressing certain things. But we have a very specific approach to how we tell you how well, basically our reporting is on how well students have learned the curriculum, and we do it over these kind of 5 different areas, and it's evaluated through different knowledge bases as well. So it's not just based on their progress tests. That isn't fair, and it's not something that we do as a school. We look at different things. So we look at their progress tests, we look at their classwork, we look at their verbal answers. We take everything into consideration when we come up with these statements. It will not just be based on that one test. So that's another thing to be mindful of. We find that students put so much pressure on this one test, but that's not how this works in terms of how we evaluate them and grade them at the end. We look at everything, because that's really important, that they realise it all kind of plays a part in where they're at and how well they've learned the curriculum. So we look at 5 different statements, and if a student's working at an emerging level, in terms of how well they've learnt the curriculum, it shows that they have some knowledge and an emerging understanding of key concepts of the curriculum. An emerging student will find that learning is a challenge and that the subject content is difficult most of the time. They need to focus on practicing and learning key concepts so that they can move towards developing. A developing student will understand the key concepts, however they're not quite secure in them. So have an understanding of them, but they're not necessarily secure in them. A student who is within the developing category will find lessons hard sometimes, but will be able to grasp many, but probably not all, of the key concepts. So they will make mistakes, but this is all part of the learning journey, and as they try to get their knowledge to be secure. Now, this is where we want most of our students to definitely be. So a student working at this level is secure in their knowledge. They've mastered key concepts and would get things right the majority of the time. All students should be aiming for the knowledge to be at least secure, as this will mean that they're on target in their key stage 3 studies to have solid foundation knowledge for their start of their GCSE studies in year 10. If their knowledge remains secure in year 10 and 11, they'll be looking at gaining grades 5s and 6s, and having access to the courses they want to study at college. A student who wants to specialise in a certain area should be aiming for their knowledge to be. So, for example, I just want to explain that in a little bit more detail. If they want to study English, for example, at A level, you would be wanting them to be looking at extending. Because a student working at extending levels shows a very secure knowledge base for that subject. They are often demonstrating greater depth of understanding and can apply and manipulate knowledge in key concepts. We know that if a student is working at extending level, they are looking at and that continues, they're looking at very high grades indeed as they move into key stage 4. And finally, exceptional is excellent knowledge, application and interplay of key concepts that together demonstrate an academic flair for the subject. So exceptional is truly that exceptional. About 1 to 2% of our student population would be working at this level, and they would be looking at grade 9s in year 11 for those subjects. That's just a really brief rundown of how it will be reported. Like I say, we make these judgments not just based on their performance in progress tests, but we consider all the different things. So any other unit tests any other assessments that they've done will be taken into consideration. work produced in their books or practical activities, home learning aspects, and students' ability to talk about the work will all be considered as we make these judgments after the progress test. But what you will receive is a report that looks like this. So you'll have all the subject areas down one side, and you'll get given the curriculum statement for that subject based on, like I say, not just the progress test, but the knowledge generally that students have demonstrated. You will also get then an effort grade, which I know you've received once already for your child in class, and an effort grade in home learning. So that's the information you'll get sent after the tests are finished and everything's been marked. I think I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again just in case I haven't already said it. Effort criteria. We have a very specific criteria linked to our scholar habits, linked to our conduct routines, linked to our learning routines, that mean that a student would get excellent or good effort. Anything below good requires improvement, and it's something that they need to really focus on, because it does mean that they're not given the right amount of attention or engagement in that lesson. So that's something that I would say, and I would say this is probably the single best indicator, alongside reading, I would say, of how successful your child will be as they move through Charlton High School. If they are putting in the effort, they might not necessarily be exactly where they want to be right now, but what we know is how we've designed the curriculum and how we work with students is we know that that allows them to go further, faster. It allows us to work with them in to get them exactly where they can go, as far as they can go. So we always say to students, effort is crucial. And if you're looking at some curriculum statements on that thing that you're not particularly happy with, this is what we'd say to students. Like, so for example, you might be developing something that you want to be secure in. If that effort grade says 1, my advice would always be not to worry, because we will get you there. That's our job. Our job is to look at the gaps and to fill them, and to support you with that. If you're putting in your 100% effort, you know, our job is to make sure that we support you to get where you need to go. So that's a big thing that I really want you to celebrate with students when you get these reports. That's the crucial part, I would say, of the report, which is why we send effort grades home more often than we do curricular evaluative grades, because it's the most important thing. Just to add clarity, Mr. Dawson, who's in charge of assessment, has put together a video that kind of explains that in a bit more detail, that will be attached to the end of this on the recording on the website, if you want to watch it. I think that does give you the perfect summary. I don't think you necessarily need to watch it. If you've got any questions, please let the year team know. We'll get back to you, but hopefully that just gives you a little bit of guidance around progress tests. They will happen, you know, students will be fine. We do think about how it all works together, and the pressure isn't on what they get at the end. The pressure is on making sure that they've practiced these routines, and please be reassured that not all of them will have got this perfect this time round, and may not even get it perfect next time round. But if they've got one thing kind of, you know, nailed down in terms of, well, actually, for the first time ever, I've revised, or actually I've managed to put together a bit of a study planner that worked for an evening, they're things that they will take forward, and they're really important, and they are milestones. So please, you know, please just be aware that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and we are, that's certainly the messaging they're getting from us at school. This is about making sure that we are building up small habits effectively over the years. We're only on, this is their first time round. We're not expecting everything to be perfect, and if at home you've been pulling your hair out trying to get them to revise, etc., focusing on one thing. Don't try and fix it all now, because that's not reality and it's not necessary. These will happen, and it's just important that they get to grips with the process, and they're focusing on those little habits that make big differences as they move through school. So I want to say Happy New Year again. I hope you had a wonderful break. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your engagement tonight. Take care.
Hello. Welcome to this presentation on assessment at Key Stage 3 at Chorlton High School. This presentation is aimed at both students and parents and will help you understand the way that we assess and report in years 7, 8 and 9. My name is Mr. Dawson. I am one of the Deputy Head Teachers here at CHS, and part of my role is working to improve the curriculum and the assessment of the curriculum. At Key Stage 3, we are changing the way that we do things. These changes are mainly to do with how we assess and what we report home to parents. We have replaced our old system, which was based on reporting progress of students. We believe our new system is much better as it focuses on judging how well a student knows the curriculum in each subject. We are looking in detail at how the student is performing in key concepts in each subject, and more on this later. So to start us off, we have a question. What exactly is a curriculum? So a curriculum is made up of all the knowledge, skills and experiences that students will learn and be able to do across each of their subjects. At Chorlton High School, this is represented as a 5-year learning journey across each subject. Our aim is for students to become knowledge rich and move from novice to expert in each subject. In other words, it is everything that is taught and hopefully learned in each classroom at Chorlton High School. So what knowledge is in the curriculum? Knowledge is what students need to be able to be successful in their academic studies, and knowledge in the curriculum can be broken down into 2 main types. These are called declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge. Declarative knowledge is the what. It is the facts, the concepts, or the rules. Procedural knowledge is the how. It produces some kind of action. It is following the steps of a process. Procedural knowledge can also be conditional, meaning it relies on knowledge that has come before. Another way to think of things is that declarative knowledge is key ideas, and procedural knowledge is using, applying, and critiquing them. So what we are going to do is to ask students' teachers about the knowledge that the students have gained in all of their subjects, and ask them the question, how well have you learned the curriculum? How well have the students learned the curriculum? Therefore, this will be a judgment of how much knowledge, both declarative and procedural, students have gained over time. To do this, we are going to assign one of the 5 words you see here to each student in each subject. These words are emerging, developing, secure, extending, and exceptional. The words and what they mean will be slightly different in each subject as the knowledge and skills needed for each subject differ. I'll now go into more detail on what each of the words mean in general terms. The first word to look at is emerging. A student working at this level has some knowledge and an emerging understanding of key concepts in the curriculum. An emerging student will find that learning is a challenge and that the subject content is difficult most of the time. They need to focus on practicing and learning key concepts so they can move to the next stage, which is developing. A student working at this level is developing their knowledge as outlined in the curriculum. They are developing the understanding of the key concepts, however, they're not yet secure in these. A student here will find lessons hard sometimes, but will be able to grasp many, but probably not all of the key concepts. They will make mistakes, but this is all part of the learning journey as they try to get their knowledge to be secure. And a student working at this level is secure in their knowledge. They have mastered key concepts and would get things right the majority of the time. All students should be aiming for their knowledge to be at least secure, as this will mean they are on target in their Key Stage 3 studies to have a solid foundation of knowledge at the start of their GCSE studies in Year 10. If their knowledge remains secure in Years 10 and Year 11, they will be looking at gaining Grade 5s and access to many of the courses that they want to study at college. A student who would like to specialise in a certain area should be aiming for their knowledge to be more than secure and extending. So a student working at this level is very secure in their knowledge. They are demonstrating that they have a greater depth of understanding and can apply and manipulate knowledge in key concepts. Students at this level often find that they are easily able to recall their knowledge and they learn things relatively easily, especially new things. They are accurate almost all of the time and are often reaching the extension activities in class. If a student maintains their knowledge at this level, they should be looking at studying the subject perhaps beyond Year 11, as they are capable of very high grades indeed. If a student's level is even beyond this level, the student's knowledge will be deemed as exceptional. And a student working at this level is excelling in a level that is exceptional. They display excellent knowledge, application, and the interplay of the key concepts that together demonstrate an academic flair for the subject. Students at this level are incredibly able in a certain discipline and are always quick and always accurate. This is a level that will only be reached by 1 to 2% of our student population, and students at this level should be looking at targeting grade 9s, which is the highest grade in their Year 11 studies. So what happens over time? As students move through Key Stage 3, the curriculum will also change as it gets broader and more challenging, and our aim is for all students to be at least secure in their knowledge in all subjects. Our teachers work really hard to deliver lessons that enable students to have this knowledge, and they also work tirelessly to support students who will have emerging or developing knowledge. Students who reach extending will be those who put in the extra work often outside the classroom in their home learning and home study, as we know that hard work and focused revision often pays off. So how do we make our judgments? Each subject area in every year group will have their own criteria for the 5 words that we are using to assess the student's knowledge. These will be sent home with any reports to parents, and I'll give you an example in a moment. Teachers will use a variety of evidence to judge where a student's knowledge is up to. They will use a number of factors that are listed here, and one of our large pieces of evidence of a student's performance are our progress tests that take place in the spring 1 half term and the summer 2 half terms. However, we understand that there's more to a student's knowledge than just replicating it on a test, and we take a balanced view of test performance together with the student's ability to communicate their ideas and thoughts through work produced in class and at home, or question answers and conversations had with students in class. Students will get their Key Stage 3 report in the Spring 2 and Summer 2 half terms, and they will look similar to the example shown here. We have a new system for reporting, and this is not yet set up, so we are aiming to send something that looks roughly like what you can see here. There are 3 main parts to reading the table. The first is to look at the curriculum statement for each subject, and the other 2 pieces of information are the effort grades, one for effort in class and the other for effort at home. I will revisit this table later, but I want to spend a little while giving you an example of how to look at the curriculum statements and how to use the effort grades effectively. And of course, there will be more subjects than just these few that I am showing here. So here's an example of what you may get from each subject. This information, as I said earlier, will be sent home with the reports and will also be available to view on the school website. This is Year 7 and it is food and nutrition, food technology. In red here, this is what has been taught over the course of Year 7 in food. It's broken down into knowledge and skills. Below, you'll see a number of statements that detail what the knowledge judgments look like. I've highlighted this secure knowledge in a yellow box to show what it means to be secure in food in Year 7. What you will see when you look at these sentences is that the more independent the student is, the further right their judgment will be. Class teachers will also help the students understand how to move their knowledge from developing to secure or from secure to extending. They will revisit knowledge toolkits used in most lessons. They will refer to personalised learning checklists that are used in many areas after progress tests to identify a student's individual strengths or areas to concentrate on. and they may direct some specific areas for home learning. Accompanying the curriculum statements, as I mentioned earlier, would be effort, and here is our effort grid. This details what we deem to be the skills and traits demonstrated by our students that will enable them to be CHS scholars. This grid again is on our website in the assessment and reporting area, so you can look at it in more detail then should you wish. Effort grades go from 4, which is poor effort, to 3, which is where effort requires improvement, to 2, which we deem as good effort, to 1, which is excellent effort. The top 8 rows are to do with effort in the classroom, and the bottom 3 rows that are shaded slightly darker are to do for effort in home learning. These effort descriptors are a group of learning and organisational behaviours that will lead to students being a success. And many of these behaviours are things that our students do on a daily basis and have been doing for many, many years. Excellent effort in the blue column is attainable for the majority of students in all they do. For example, they need to arrive promptly and fully equipped to every lesson. They need to show the right focus in lessons by sitting up straight, tracking the teacher, asking and answering questions, and showing respect to others. Student books should be exceptional, with new vocabulary written down and defined, and work presented so that the book can almost be used as a revision aid. Excellent effort by a student is also demonstrating listening skills, working collaboratively as a team, and responding well to feedback. Excellent effort in home learning is similar, but applying these same skills to work completed at home and, of course, handing work in on time. The reason that I talk in detail about effort is that it's something that we are working on all the time in school. Form tutors and the year teams regularly revisit aspects of effort, and we'll go into great detail in one area at once, helping the student to understand just what is expected of them in all lessons. Teachers also reinforce the learning behaviours so they become habits, and the students will do them without thinking. And in my opinion, they are the most important part of the report because there are clear things that we can do in order to help students improve. So let's go back to the example report that I showed earlier. This student has clearly done well in most subjects and has a talent for drama with the effort grades and the curriculum statement of extending. But the student hasn't done so well in science or maths. Could this be that effort in class is not as good as it could be? The student here can put the effort into other subjects, so what's going on? I would certainly have a conversation with the child. Firstly, I would talk about the effort and get the students to think about what they are trying in their subjects that they're doing well in, and are they applying the same effort, the same behaviours, the same habits to their maths and science? Or perhaps maybe the student hasn't grasped some of the concepts in maths and science. So it would be worth to look back at the curricula in these subjects and look at the breakdown of what's been taught and whether the student has grasped it. This will also be supported by the class teacher. So the report here help guide the support for the student learning. Some students may see these curriculum statements in their effort and be able to work independently on improvement in a few of their areas. Some students may require some support from parents, from teachers or form tutors. All of this is absolutely okay. It's part of the learning process to get the students at Key Stage 3 ready for further subject studies at Key Stage 4. If you would like to know more, please visit the assessment and reporting section of the school website, where all this information will eventually be stored. At the moment, it's under construction, but there'll be much more information on there early to mid-January. That's all from me for the time being. Can I thank you for your time listening to this presentation and, of course, for your continuing support of all of our students. Goodbye.